Welcome to Coffee, Culture, and the Capital with Sophia and Greg. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are so excited to be back with you all. And we have some conversations about the feds we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about another giant sum of money going from Newsom, the state capital, our government, over to abortion clinics. And it's just so disheartening to see what's going on there through different budget bills. So there's a lot for us to chat with you guys all about. But before we kick off, Greg, do you have a coffee or a drink for Coffee Culture in the Capital?
Just the regular, coffee here. Worship, learn, and serve cup. So
there you go.
It's boring, but it's my daily coffee amount. So how about you?
I have my coffee that I made, an iced Americano, a splash of almond milk, some cinnamon, and
Wow.
it's a good day to have a good day cup. So what a reminder that is. Keeping that in mind with all the crazy we're talking about. But right. Greg, if people follow us on social media, we posted about this week. You wrote an article that's on our blog. People can find that at californiafamily.org. But, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, people celebrated. We celebrated. We've been wanting to see that happen. But I think something we recognized in California was things are going to get worse for the life issue in California now, because when Roe v. Wade was overturned, we recognized $90 million of abortion bailout, ultimately for Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics from our government. But Greg, can you kind of walk us through that? I know a lot of people have heard when like Governor Newsom gave this many millions of dollars to Planned Parenthood, but what do you mean by abortion bailout and what got us to this point?
Well, the federal government has been helping us out on the issue of abortion. And one of the things that, conservative Christians have been clamoring for years is why are we still giving Planned Parenthood dollars? Like the Hyde Amendment is a law that says federal money can't be used for abortions, but Planned Parenthood was still getting millions of dollars. Now, what Planned Parenthood would do is say, well, these funds we're getting from the feds, that's going for other services like birth control or STD testing. But we all know what happens when you give a large chunk of money to an organization. It's easy to shift money around and nobody knows what's happening. So last year we had a budget that was passed by the federal government that banned Planned Parenthood from getting funding for 1 year, right? So they sued, there was a lot of lawsuits and there's still lawsuits ongoing, but actually that action resulted in at least, I believe it was 23 Planned Parenthood abortion clinics closing down nationwide. And that included here in California. Planned Parenthood is a huge lobbying group here at the Capitol. They don't just promote abortion. They promote sex ed. They are giving out ratings to legislators. They are one of the most powerful lobbying organizations here at the state. So the state government, the legislators are falling all over themselves in order to say, hey, we are going to come to the rescue. If the Trump administration is going to pull funding from abortion clinics, then we will backfill that. And so that's what they did. Last year, they put $140 million into the budget. Just last week, the two leaders of the Assembly and the Senate, Assembly Speaker Robert Rivas and Senate Pro Tem Monique Lemon, put out a joint press release announcing that AB 106 and SB 106 would pass $90 million in one-time general fund appropriations for grants to reproductive health care, like Planned Parenthood. So, of course, they call it reproductive health care, but of course, abortion does not help you reproduce anything. It's all about ending reproduction. But that's the words they use because, actually saying what they're actually doing would turn people against what they're doing. So we're killing unborn babies, right? And we're spending taxpayer dollars to do it, 90 more million for the budget. And so now those two bills are going to be going through the process. And it just shows that California, at least its government leaders, are all in on going after the unborn. They have not let up. and the least, and they are there to rescue Planned Parenthood every time the federal government comes and takes their money away. So folks, this is your money. This is your taxpayer dollars at work. And if no one says anything when they do this, you can expect this to continue. So this is why voting is important. This is why speaking up is important. And it's outrageous as it sounds.
And if you're wondering, how can I keep watching these bills? How can I know what's going on? How can I keep up to date? Go ahead and go to californiafamily.org. You can sign up for our weekly newsletter there. On Mondays, you will get an email with updates about what's happening in the legislature. You'll get emails about our bill watch list. Also, follow us across social media, California Family Council on Instagram and Facebook and X, where we will be posting updates when major bills we're watching have hearings, who you can call, how you can get involved. We want to provide that all to you guys. But there's also a way, Greg, people can show up to the state capitol in March to kind of stand up for the issue of life. And so, Greg, what do we have coming up on March 16th?
We have the March for Life, the California March for Life. We have thousands of folks showing up here at the Capitol. There'll be a big prayer rally, some worship. There'll be a big rally with a lot of great speakers. And then we'll be marching around the Capitol complex as we have the last 5 years. I think this will be our 6th annual March for Life here in California. And so come on out. It's a great opportunity for families to communicate to our legislators that we intend to continue to stand up for the value of human life at all ages, right? No matter what. And so we will not be discouraged by the actions of these legislators. And we also want to encourage those pro-life legislators who are in the building thinking that, if I stand up for pro-life issues, I'm all alone. And we want them to know that, no, they are not alone, and that there are a lot of people who are very interested in this issue, and justice would require us to stand up for the innocent and those innocent who can't speak for themselves. So it's going to be an exciting time. If you haven't been, this is the year to come.
Absolutely. And if you're a frequent podcast listener, you guys know that sometimes we let you guys in on things early before other people get to know via email or social media, things like that. So one of our speakers for the March for Life is Sean Thornburg, who runs California Love Life program. And so he's going to be speaking on the stage at the California March for Life in regards to what he has seen firsthand happen outside of Planned Parenthoods, and babies' lives being saved, and moms coming to Jesus, and churches helping out, and so much going on. But we wanted you all to firsthand hear from Sean himself about why you should attend the March for Life. So let's check that out.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Sean Thornburg from Love Life here in Southern California. Listen, I'm inviting you to join me Monday, March 16th in Sacramento for our annual March for Life. Listen, you guys, I march because I serve the God of life. And if you're calling yourself a Christian, you do too. We serve the God who not only is the author of life at conception, but also he's the redeemer of life. If you're a Christian, it is our duties to stand for righteousness, to stand for life. So I hope that you guys can join me Monday, March 16th as we march for life. And it's important, you guys, as the church leads, and we need to do a better job at leading. As we lead, legislation will follow. So if you guys are tired of bad legislation and corrupt politics, it's important that the church leads with courage. So join me Monday, March 16th in Sacramento as we lead with courage and we stand for truth in love according to God's will. Hope to see you guys there.
Well, Greg, I think Sean just makes such a great point. If we want to stop seeing bad pro-abortion legislation, we want to see a change, that us as Christians need to show up to the Capitol and make our voices heard and influence what's happening at the state capitol. And so I'm so excited for the March for Life. Greg, I know you're so excited for the March for Life. If you want more information, head to californiafamily.org. There's an entire March for Life page there. The link will also be in our show notes, so you can visit it there. We would love to see you guys then. But Greg, I know we talked about some bad news that came from the California Capitol on all this abortion funding and bailouts, but we just had a major win and a major step in the right direction from the federal government, from the U.S. Department of Education, in regards to things that we've been fighting for years in California. So what was the news from the U.S. Department of Ed?
Yeah, as you know, that we have been fighting against the Department of Education telling school districts that it is perfectly fine and acceptable to change the names and pronouns of students and to encourage them to explore what gender they might be, what sex they might be, because telling them that your feelings determine sex and not your biology. And if you change your name and pronoun, that your teachers and the administration will keep that secret from your parents, called these secret transitioning plans. And so, but the problem is there is a federal law called the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, which actually guarantees that school records must be accessible by parents. And so that secrets are not allowed. But so there was an investigation by the Department of Ed because they heard about all these secret transition plans, all this pressure from the Department of Ed, the Attorney General, on school districts to not let parents know if their kid had changed their pronouns or changed their name at school. And they found them guilty of violating what they call it FERPA. And so this is huge. We knew they were violating federal law. We knew they were violating parental rights, but to have the federal government, the Department of Ed, officially find them guilty of breaking the law is quite an encouragement. We kind of felt we had a parental rights coalition. We just had a meeting recently, and we had the Department of Ed actually on there explaining what the decision was meant. And I just was so express my gratefulness because we really did feel like we were outnumbered. I mean, when the Attorney General, the department, the superintendent of education, Tony Thurman, all the legislators, not all of them, but a bunch of the legislators all telling us, that our attempt to have notification policies, which we encourage school districts to have, notification policies that simply said, if a kid changes his name and pronoun at a school, parents must be notified. They flipped out over that. And to now have the federal government say, no, we were in the right is so encouraging. And one of the things that they said was they found is that, and here's how they skirted around the law. And I'm going to show you, you're going to see on the screen something called a gender support plan. I printed out one here, and this is, you can download one from an organization called Gender Spectrum. And these are they're called gender support plans, and it says confidential at the very top. And it says that, I'm going to read here, it says the purpose of the document is to create shared understanding of how a student's authentic gender will be accounted for and supported at school. And so the front of this form, lists the kid's name, his sex assigned at birth, right? Assigned. You don't assign birth, but that's how they call it. Talk about it. And then the next thing here, after you put the kid's details, it says parent involvement. Like, how much should parents be involved in this transition plan? And you're supposed to check, well, guardians aware of students' gender, yes or no? And then it says support level, 0 to 10, right? If support level is low, I'm still reading here. If support level is low, what considerations must be accounted for in implementing this plan? So what was happening is schools were filling out these plans for kids at any age. And then you would think, well, this is part of a kid's record that FERPA would make sure parents have access to. But no, they called these particular forms, they renamed them. They said they were unofficial records. And they would put them in a special file that in the principal's office or the counselor's office, where parents didn't know what was on them. And the Department of Ed has said this. It says, well, as part of the punishment for these schools, they must do the following. It lists all these things they must do. One of them, it says, you must publicize there is no unofficial records exception for FERPA, and further notifying superintendents and administrators that AB 1955, now I'll tell you what that is in a second, as well as other California laws, regulations, or policies should not be interpreted to undermine or contradict federal law. and that violations of FERPA risk loss of federal financial assistance. So what they're saying here is if you don't stop making these records unofficial and don't give parents access to them, school, you're going to lose federal funding. And as you know, and maybe you don't remember, but we were with a bunch of various organizations promoting parent notification policies. We had about 10 school districts that implemented them. And in response, the legislature passed a bill, AB 1955, which was just mentioned here. And that bill actually prohibited any school district from having a policy requiring notification if a kid changes their name or pronoun. And so we will see what's going to happen, because the Department of Ed has till mid-February to respond to these accusations. And if they do not comply, if they do not change and announce to schools that kids and parents need to be talking and you can't hide changes to names and pronouns without telling a parent, if they don't announce that to everybody in the school district, then they will turn the case over to the Department of Justice for prosecution. And loss of federal funds is a big possibility. So we'll see what our state government does in response. Because here, and I just want to read this. This is what our Attorney General Bonta currently has on his website. He has a form on there listing off LGBTQ rights. And one of those rights he lists on his own website, I'm going to read it. He's telling kids the following. He says, "You have the right to disclose or not disclose your gender identity on your own terms, regardless of age." Regardless of age. 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. You don't have to disclose to your, get ready. It gets worse. It says your school, whether public or private, we're talking Christian school, doesn't have the right to out you as LGBTQ to anyone without your permission, including your parents. So he's telling a Christian school that if a 5-year-old decides he's really not a male or a female, or he decides he's the opposite sex, or he decides he's a furry or some kind of animal, and you must keep that secret from the parent. That's what our Attorney General says. It's crazy, and it's so glad that we have sanity, common sense returning, and we'll see what they do. I fear that it's going to take a lawsuit, and it's going to take actual funds being pulled before our legislative leaders and the Attorney General actually starts obeying the law. So we'll see.
Yes, and if you guys are interested in reading the 2 stories that we had just talked about, go ahead again, check those show notes. They will be linked down below so you guys can read them all. And again, do not forget to sign up for our newsletter, follow on social media. And if you enjoyed listening to this podcast or feel like you learned something from it, please feel free to give us 5 stars on the podcast channels, share it around to your friends. And so that way we can keep you guys updated again on what's happening in California. And also, we just had a big press conference this morning outside of CIF's meeting. We went into the CIF meeting and spoke directly to CIF. We had female athletes there. We had state legislators there. So you guys can head to the California Family Council YouTube page to watch that whole live stream. And I'm sure on the podcast next week, we'll break that down a little bit more for you guys. But with that, we will see you all next time.